homie Big Fly came to check on a good man.
Had to come check on you, man. Make sure everything good with you, man. We ain't going for nothing. We ain't taking no prison. We ain't taking no loss.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Everything with you, man.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with Keith Eugene Gaffney, now 70 years old, he'd been incarcerated since September 1973, when he was charged in the District of Columbia Superior Court with assault with intent to rape while armed, assault with intent to kill while armed, 2 counts of armed robbery, 2 counts of rape while armed, kidnapping, carrying a pistol without a license, burglary while armed, and armed robbery. On July 29th, 1973, Keith Gaffney and another individual, Willie Ingram, were in the home of Victim 1, along with Victim 2 and Victim 3. While in Victim 1's home, Gaffney and Ingram held Victim 1 at gunpoint, demanded narcotics, and then shot her in the chest. Gaffney and Ingram robbed victims in the home, and Ingram raped Victim 2. Gaffney and Ingram proceeded to kidnap Victim 2, use heroin, and rape her throughout the day. They eventually took Victim 2 to the home of Victim 4, and Gaffney later robbed, raped, and threatened to kill Victim 4 over the course of 4 hours. After trial, Gaffney was ultimately sentenced to 24 years to life imprisonment. Gaffney is free today after being granted a compassionate release due to a 20-year-long battle with hepatitis C. Eon Williams of the DC Blacks YouTube channel is doing his best to change the narrative in regards to Keith Gaffney, championing him a kingpin, a Lorton legend, and a big homie, but failing to call him what he really is, a chronic heroin abuser whose addiction and desperation combined drove him to become a convicted rapist. Tried and convicted of multiple rapes stemming from the same incident, when asked about his crimes at sentencing, Gaffney did not declare his innocence. Instead, he offered, "I was a young guy that felt like my life was gone and nothing mattered to me." He said that on the stand in 1995. A then 20-year-old rapist that continued to rape men in prison, as detailed by his childhood friend and comrade at USP McNeil Island, Walter that is, Harris. Gaffney Bey, or Khalid Mujahid, is only free today because he suffers from an incurable eye disease that is ultimately rendering him blind, glaucoma, muscular degeneration, and largely due to the fact that the BOP lost his medical records from 1998, showing that he tested positive for hepatitis C, leaving it untreated from 1998 to 2020, and the disease could not be managed in prison, at least according to his attorney. Now let's talk about who Gaffney really is. All right, peace. You already know where you at and who you rocking with, right? Right. So let's get to that thing. Yo, this right here, this is going to be part 1 to my expose of who Keith Eugene Gaffney, a.k.a. Keith Eugene Gaffney Bey, a.k.a. Khalif Mujahid, a.k.a. Fly and DC Fly. You heard? This is going to be part 1. For everybody that's unfamiliar with Fly, all you got to do is type in Keith Eugene Gaffney, DC, and it'll pop up for you. But for everybody else, I put links into the description box about the detail. I did a video about the detail. It's down there. That's his crew of pirates or whatnot. And I also did a video covering him. It's also down there. But there's a publication I'd like for all of you to go and check out. It's on a small paper. It's called WashingtonCityPaper.com/House of Pain. I want everybody to go look that article up. I tried to put the link down there At this point, I don't know if it's lit up or not, so you go tell me. But it is WashingtonCityPaper.com/House of Pain. There's a very interesting article that tells a lot about who Gaffney is, and a lot of people told stories about who Gaffney is. Matter of fact, here it is right here. Oh, you can't see that, I know. Washington City Paper is labeled House of Pain or whatnot. But yeah, I wrote some notes down, man. Some very interesting things, you know. I've been seeing a lot of stuff about Gaffney on the internet as of recent. There's been an uproar about some things he said about Chaz of the Black Hand from NYC or whatnot. I saw Gene Dale speak about it. I saw the Raw Report say something about it, or Raw Reality, I believe. I don't want to get the name wrong, but I saw a few people speak about it. And that made me want to revisit who this Gaffney person was for everybody that was unfamiliar with him. Because the DC Blacks channel is trying to create a new wave around him. They're saying a lot of stuff that may or may not be true, but they're leaving out the truth. You dig where I'm coming from? So check this out, man. Corporal Robert T. Green was prosecuted in 1997 and is referred to as the most corrupt Lorton correctional officer in memory. Shout out to the notes, you know I got them. Check this out. It says Green worked for Gaffney, the mastermind behind Lorton's largest known drug conspiracy. Now that's why the DC Blacks and the dude Eon is trying to champion him as a kingpin. It says Green received 235 months in federal prison for his role in the conspiracy. He cooperated with the government in hopes to get a reduced sentence. During his trial, two men testified that I'll be covering today and focusing on. One of them is Walter Harris, his childhood friend and confidant. The other one is Tony Patterson. That would be Gaffney's top soldier and best friend, as well as banker in prison, who's also, at his own admission, a blatant flamboyant homosexual who used his keistering ability to hold up to a half ounce of heroin and a large sum of money every day with Gaffney at Lorton. Now let's focus on that. Why aren't the DC Blacks calling him a convicted rapist? Why aren't they speaking about the fact that he got his charges from raping? He's no kingpin. He wasn't doing anything on the streets. Nothing of substance. He's a great boxer. Cool. He wasn't boxing on the streets. He was doing heroin. Is what he was doing, robbing and raping, pillaging, until he was caught and consequently sent to prison. But no one is speaking about it like that. They're making him this kingpin and this and that and the other, when he was nothing but a heroin abuser on the streets. Now, during Gaffney's trial, Assistant U.S. Attorney Thomas M. Hollenhurst declared that Gaffney was allowed to have sex with corrections officers. He said, in fact, he had sex with corrections officers, inmates, and visitors. Now, we know he had a boyfriend in the streets. And we know he liked men in prison. He raped men in prison or had sex with blatant homosexuals like his best friend and top soldier, Tony Patterson, or whatnot. So this right here verifies that he's a bisexual rapist of men and women. You dig what I'm talking about? Now, a lot of people gave me flack the first time I reported on this, saying that, oh, it was a what's the word I'm looking for? Unisex jail. There was women in the jail. They said he was sleeping with inmates. That was women. Visitors was women. Correction officers was women. Okay. But what about what Walter Harris said? Everybody want to say he was sleeping with women. No. If he's not gay, he's bisexual, a bisexual rapist, because according to his friend at Green's trial, Walter Harris, a heroin user since 1969, has known Gaffney since their early teens at the DC juvenile facilities. He testified that his first reunion with Gaffney had been in a federal penitentiary at McNeil Island. Harris, the godfather to one of Gaffney's daughters. Now, why would this dude need to lie? You've known him since early teens. He's the godfather to one of his daughters. They've done a lot of time together. He said, what did it say? The godfather of one of his daughters testified that he and Gaffney stood back to back in the prison yard, armed with knives, after Gaffney had raped a homosexual inmate. We faced death. Together we stood ready to die in front of 300 Chicanos. That's how close we were, he recalled at Green's trial. Look up the House of Pain. Washington City Paper.com/House of Pain. Look this article up. It's all in there. He testified this at trial. He didn't say after he was accused of raping a homosexual inmate. This is his man. It's his homeboy. He's standing there ready to stab some Chicanos because his man's raped a homosexual inmate. I don't like that whole situation, but that right there verifies and confirms the fact that he's a bisexual rapist of men and women inside and outside of prison. Why would dude need to lie? He didn't say after he was accused, and then even if nobody accuses, man, in prison, it's not no accused. He did, I think he did it or whatnot. Ain't nobody threw no bag over nobody's head. Dude know who did that to them, and that's why them 300 Chicanos was about to stab him at USP McNeil Island. Why are they leaving that out? Why hasn't the DC Blacks asked him about that incident? He wants to ask him about boxing matches and knowing this person and that person and doing time with this person and that person and fighting. Ask him about how many individuals' lives he's altered. Let's just say that. With his sexual deviance. Him in the detail. If he didn't like you, he ordered you beaten or murdered. If he wanted a work assignment, he'd order you murdered. If he wanted your behind, he'd take it. He'd have you beaten and they would take it. A dude by the name of Smith, I can't recall his first name, said that if Gaffney wanted you, what he would do was he would order, somebody would pop your cell. They had a handcuff key. Someone would pop your cell and then they would rush in. They wouldn't give you any face shots. All shots to the body and the nuts. What type of nigga just hit niggas in the nuts? I don't believe I've ever used that move in life. That's like a desperation move or something you do when you think your life is in danger, you running out of wind or something, you gasping for breath. You're like, fuck it, get off me. And grab a nigga nuts or something. You feel me? Or punch a nigga dick off. But nigga, that ain't just no shit you just do go in and punch a nigga in the dick. You niggas is all pirates. You heard? Him and the detail, dog. Nah, that's the first one. Let's get to this. Where I'm at. Shout out to the notes because you know I'm got them. Tony Patterson, Gaffney's top soldier and best friend, testified that he's considered a blatant homosexual flamboyant in jail and out. Patterson was Gaffney's bank because his rectum was so big and clean. Pause. He stated that he used Massengale or a shampoo bottle to flush his rectum regularly. Patterson often stored more than a half ounce of heroin in his rectum as well as a sizable amount of cash. Gaffney called it his rear end safety deposit box. He testified on the stand at Green's trial. That's interesting, man. I'm gonna end this like this, man. The last time I talked about this and his best friend with the large clean rectum, pause. We ended it on the multiple choice. That's what we're gonna do tonight. We're gonna end this on the multiple choice, man. You feel me? That's what we're gonna do, man. How do you think Gaffney knew how big and clean his best friend's and top lieutenant's rectum was? A. Tony Patterson told him, hey man, I got a big clean rectum if you want to use it and stick things in it. B. Keith Gaffney went into it and found out for himself how big and clean it was. Pause. C. He saw his big clean rectum in the shower and offered him a job sticking things into it to hold for him in his body cavity. D. They had a prior relationship. Or E, all of the above. Jump in the comment box and let me know. Is it A, is it B, is it C, or is it D? But dig this here. One thing's clear. Gaffney is no champion. He is not worthy of Allah. Now, which one is it? Was he a Moor? He went from being a Moor, Gaffney Bey. That's Moorish. You went from being a Moor to a Muslim. What happened? The Moors kick you out the temple? They kick you out the whip? You heard? You know, they say in the federal penitentiary, all your sins are forgiven when you join that Muslim car. So it don't matter if you're a rapist, a snitch, a tree jumper, or none of that extra stuff. As long as you take your shahada, you good, and all is forgiven with Allah. I don't think the Moors carry it like that. I don't know. That Bey might have came off your name because they figured out who you was in life. Hey, Eon, ask him them questions the next time you put him under the big screen and the bright lights and try to champion a rapist, convicted, tried and true, that continued to rape in prison at USP McNeil Island. Peace to the gods and earths. The 5% that is. I'll be back.